Welcome back, guys. It's Andrew here, and we have a massive update for folks on Social Security benefits. 7 changes that are taking effect now in 2023. We're going to talk about exactly what these changes are and how they could affect you or someone else you know. We're also going to talk about 7 additional changes that are being proposed and have a lot of support from the general public, right? So these are 7 additional changes that could improve Social Security, fix the program, make it solvent, and even potentially increase benefits for some folks. These are 7 changes that are being proposed and have massive support from the American people, right? But first, we're going to talk about the 7 changes that are effective now, how those could affect you. Then we'll talk about these additional 7 changes and how they could affect you as well. But before we jump into it, folks, as always, like and subscribe if you like this content. Also, if you haven't done it yet, why haven't you gotten your free stocks? Link to that is going to be in the description of this video. It's our partner Webull. All you have to do is sign up, fully open your account, and deposit even just $1, and you'll get up to 12 free stocks valued up to $3,000 each. If you get lucky, I'll get a free stock as well, so it supports my work. So click that link, fully open your account, and deposit $1 to claim your free stocks. Again, you can sell them immediately and take the money out if you'd like. All right, guys, let's jump into these 7 changes for Social Security benefits that are effective now as of January in 2023, right? Now, the first one is going to be the most obvious one, right? This COLA, this 8.7% COLA, which people are going to start getting their first increased payments here in January, right? Now, as of making this video, the first set of people just got their benefits on, I believe it was January 11th, right? And then the next set of people, January 18th, and then January 25th. So let me know in the comments if you've gotten your bigger Social Security benefit payment yet. If you haven't gotten that yet, it's going to be coming in the next week or two. Now, that's the obvious one, right? COLA went up 8.7%, which is the biggest raise in 41 years. Now, before we jump into the next 6 changes that are effective now for Social Security benefits, I quickly want to cover the fact that there are a lot of people speculating that COLA for 2024 could be zero. A big goose egg, zilch, nada. Now that's scary, right, for people on Social Security benefits. And we've seen it happen before, right? We've seen, if you see on your screen here, in the last 14 years, COLA has been zero basically 4 times, right? In 2009, 2010, and 2015, COLA was zero. Then in 2016, it was zero point 0.3, which is basically zero as well, right? So a 0% COLA kind of seems crazy on the surface, but for those of you who have been on benefits for a while, you've seen COLA be zero multiple times just in the last 14 years, right? Now, before we jump into the additional 6 changes that are effective now for Social Security benefits, let's quickly talk about the possibility of COLA being zero in 2024, right? We hope that doesn't happen, but there's a lot of articles and videos out there scaring people, telling people, this is a possibility. Now, although it is a possibility, right, this could still happen. If we look back at history, what's more likely to happen based off of previous times of higher COLAs is usually you kind of see a sharp drop down for COLA, but it doesn't usually go all the way down to zero, right? It has before, but not usually. Like, so for example, in the early 80s, it looks like around 1980, COLA was 14.3%. Then the next year it was 11%. Then it went down to about 7%, right? You didn't see a massive COLA and then boom, down to zero, right? Again, in 2008, we saw COLA spike up to 5.8%. Then we did the very next year, we had 0% COLAs for the next 2 years, right? But for the most part, if you look back to the last 50 years or so, every time we have a spike, generally the COLA slowly goes back down, back to a normal range, which unfortunately is usually like 2-3%, right? So all of this has to do with inflation. We've talked about how COLA gets calculated multiple times. It has to do with the third quarter of every year. So although right now we have inflation of about 6-7%, if those 3 months in Q3 COLA or inflation comes back at zero or negative, then you could have a 0% COLA, right? And that's what we will keep you posted on in this channel. Now, what is the second massive change, which is effective now in 2023 for Social Security benefits, right? Now, this is actually a good thing for most people who are on Social Security benefits, right? And this is essentially wealthier people are going to pay a little more tax into the Social Security Trust Fund, right? Now, at this point, most of you know that Social Security is funded from your taxes, right? The payroll Social Security tax. And there's always an income limit on this, unfortunately, right? And this is something that progressives like Bernie Sanders and President Biden are trying to change. They're trying to lift that cap. So basically, almost everybody is paying into the payroll tax. But unfortunately, there is a limit, right? And one of the big changes this year in 2023 is that limit is going up, right? It actually goes up basically every year. And last year in 2022, if you made above $147,000 per year, you stopped paying into the Social Security payroll tax, right? So when you have someone like Elon Musk making billions of dollars in 2022, he barely paid into the Social Security Trust Fund, right? That again, that's something they're trying to fix. But as far as this year, this is going up from $147,000 per year to, let's see here, $160,200, if you could see that on your screen. So now more money is going to be going into the trust fund, which is great. It's not enough, right, to fix the long term solvency. But now for folks who make $160,200 per year, that's going to keep going into the trust fund, paying into the payroll tax. So that is the second biggest change for Social Security benefits. The bracket for who pays into the payroll tax has gone up, which is generally good for the solvency of Social Security benefits. Now, there's a lot more things that go into that. That's not going to get fixed overnight, but for now, this is the change that has taken place. Now, the third change here, which is massive for those of you on benefits, the maximum benefit has gone up again. And this is a massive benefit, right? And I want to point out that there's two sides to this, right? On the one side, there's people who made a ton of money during their work life and they have a large benefit. These people are happy when the max goes up, right? Because their benefit gets bigger. Then we have the far majority of people who get upset because, you've got people on Social Security, a lot of people making very little, and then you have some people making a lot. It doesn't really seem fair, right? So take that for what you will. But the maximum benefit has gone up to 3,000. Sorry, let me double check here. Has gone up from $3,345 per month to $3,627 per month. That is a massive increase to the maximum monthly benefit for Social Security benefits, right? Now, it's worth noting that only 2% of beneficiaries qualify for this maximum benefit, right? And it's also worth noting that the average person on Social Security benefits right now in 2023 gets $1,827 per month. Now, that's a pretty good benefit if you have other streams of income, right? So if you have a 401k, maybe you have a side job where you make a little bit of money and you add Social Security benefits on top of that, $1,827 per month, that's a great benefit, right? But if you're solely relying on Social Security benefits, it's not enough. And that is why I always encourage my subscribers to have multiple streams of income. Imagine if you just had an extra $500 to $1,000 per month coming in on top of your Social Security benefit. How massive of a change could that have on your life? Well, folks, the easiest way to do this is to tap into something called the gig economy. And it's literally as easy as tapping a couple of buttons on your phone and working whenever you feel like it. Now, I've come up with a course for my subscribers. So it's a video series showing you how to tap into the gig economy. Now, what exactly is the gig economy, right? Essentially, what it is, and the best example I can give you, is working on demand when you feel like it, which allows you to work maybe a handful of hours per week, maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, and make easily $500 to $1,000 per month. Now, imagine what that would do to help you in retirement, right? And the easiest example I could think of is working for Amazon. So imagine picking up your phone, you download an Amazon app, you punch a couple of buttons, and you tell Amazon, hey, Jeff Bezos, I'm going to work for you on Tuesday from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m., right? You work when you want, as much as you want. You're your own boss, and you could easily make $500 to $1,000 per month. You could even make semi passive income by doing things like if you have a garage, you can rent that out on a safe, reputable website and make an additional maybe $100 to $200 per month. Now, in my program, the Gig Economy Pro, I show you exactly how to do this. We even are opening a Facebook group so we can talk to you personally and kind of get a sense for your situation and help you figure out which gig economy opportunity is best for you, and even cover how to make sure you're not making too much money so then you start to get taxed, right? So then you start to pay higher taxes on your social security benefits. So if you guys are interested in that, the link is going to be in the description of this video. Right now, the program is in the pre-launch, meaning it's going to launch in about 4 to 6 weeks. So if you sign up now, you're not going to see the course there yet. It will launch in the next 4 to 6 weeks, but you will be getting a massive discount. So if you guys are interested in that, click the link in the description of this video. Could make a massive difference in your retirement, right? Now, back to the 7 changes that are in effect now for Social Security benefits, right? Now, we just talked about the fact that the third change effective now is the monthly maximum benefit has gone up from $3,345 to $3,627. Now, the next massive change effective now in 2023 is the withholding thresholds are going up. Now, this has to do with people who, again, have additional streams of income. So let's say, for example, you make, and specifically for people who are under the full retirement age. So let's say you're 63, you're getting Social Security benefits, but you also have a part time job that brings in a little bit of money as well. Now, you have to be careful because if you make too much and you're not at full retirement age yet, they start to deduct from your Social Security benefit, right? The income limit here is what they call that. Now, currently in 20 or previously in 2022, if you made $19,560 in 2022, above that, for every $2 you made, they would deduct $1 of your Social Security benefit, right? So essentially, if you're under full retirement age, let's say you're 63, 64, it really wasn't worth making more than $19,560. So, for example, if you joined the Gig Economy Pro and you were making additional money on top of Social Security benefits in 2022, you would have wanted to keep that below $19,560 per year if you were under full retirement age. Now, that has been increased to $21,240 for 2023. So if you have additional streams of income, you're under full retirement age, you can now make a little bit more without getting your Social Security benefits deducted, right? Now you can make $21,240 per year, an increase from $19,560. So that's good for people who want to get their Social Security benefit, but still want to live a comfortable retirement and have additional streams of income, right? Now, the fifth biggest change effective now in 2023, it's a similar change to what we just spoke about, but it specifically applies to SSDI, Social Security Disability Benefits. Now, for those of you who are on SSDI, first of all, congratulations for qualifying. But at the same time, it's a terrible thing to have to be disabled, right? And have to deal with these things. But a lot of people who have some form of a disability, they might not be able to work 40 hours a week, but they could still work maybe 5 or 10 hours a week. They might not be able to work their previous job, which was what they built their career on, but maybe they could have a part-time job, maybe delivering for Amazon or working, at a front desk or something like that, right? And these folks have an income limit as well. Now, previously, the income limit for SSDI was $1,350 per month. Now that's been increased to $1,470 per month. Now, these increases are great. And the reason they're great is because they allow people who are on SSDI or Social Security benefits to live in a retirement of dignity, right? It empowers folks to go out and take control of their retirement and make sure, you know what? If I'm getting $1,800 a month in Social Security or SSDI, I'm also going to have $1,000 a month from my 401k and $1,000 a month from my gig economy side hustle, right? This allows people to be empowered. And when they increase these income limits every year, it goes a long way to help people do that, right? Now, if you're blind, if you're actually blind, the income limit is actually a little bit higher. Now, the monthly earnings cap for those who are blind on SSDI went up to $2,460 per month from 2,260, right? So that went up $200 per month. Now, for those of you who are blind, I mean, it's got to be so difficult actually getting a job that makes that much, but the income limit has gone up for that as well. Now, the sixth biggest change effective now in 2023 is essentially this won't affect you if you're already on benefits, but for those of you who are still working, you need a certain amount of credits to qualify for Social Security, right? And essentially, you need 40 lifetime credits, 40 credits you accrue over the course of your lifetime, and you can get 4 credits per year, right? And you have to earn a certain amount of money to get each credit. Now, that amount that you need to earn each credit typically goes up almost every single year. Now, in 2022, a credit was granted for each $1,510 of income. Now, in 2023, the change here is in order to get each credit, you have to make $1,640 for each credit, and you can get 4 credits per year, and you need 40 credits to qualify for the minimum Social Security benefit. Now, for those of you who are a little bit of higher earners or maybe average earners, this minimum, doesn't really affect you. But for people who are lower income, it really gives them an opportunity to qualify for those credits. Unfortunately, that does go up slightly every single year. So that's the sixth biggest change in 2023, that the income required to earn each credit for Social Security benefits has gone up slightly from $1,510 to $1,640. Now, the seventh biggest change here, and this again mostly affects people who have additional forms of income in their retirement on top of Social Security benefits, is the taxes. Now, basically, if you make too much money, and we talk about this in the Gig Economy Pro course, link in the description, you start to pay taxes on your Social Security benefit, right? And this is at the federal level. If you're at the state level, every state does things differently. Some states follow the federal rules as well. Some states don't tax your Social Security benefits at all. Some states tax them no matter what. So refer to your own state that you're in. But when it comes to federal taxes on Social Security benefits, basically back in 1983, Ronald Reagan introduced a tax on benefits. Before that, there was no tax. And right now, if you make over a certain amount, you start to pay taxes on 50% of your Social Security benefits, right? And if you make even more past another threshold, you start to pay taxes on 85% of your Social Security benefit. And essentially, what's happening here is these thresholds don't change. So every year you have COLA increasing benefits, and you have wages going up for people making additional side money. And eventually, as wages go up and COLA goes up, more people fall into those tax brackets, right? So essentially, how this works is if you make $25,000 or more per year, you start to pay taxes on 50% of your Social Security benefit. But the way it really works is they take your Social Security benefit, they cut that in half, then they add it to whatever income you're making additionally. And if that adds up to over $25,000 per year or $32,000 for married couples filing jointly, then you're going to have to pay taxes on 50% of your Social Security benefit. Now, this has implications because those numbers stay the same every year and COLA keeps increasing benefits. So if you're working and making additional money, it becomes easier to fall into those brackets and start paying more taxes, right? So more people each year get pushed into those brackets. And that's the seventh change happening now. It's not necessarily a change per se, but it could be a change for you if you got pushed up into that bracket. So if you're close to those brackets, double check. It might actually be worth working slightly less to save you a lot of money in taxes. Again, that's something we talk about in the Gig Economy program. We talk about the income limits, what your retirement benefit is, and what threshold you need to stay under to make sure you're not paying too much taxes, right? So it's not as simple as just showing you how to click a button and go work for Amazon when you feel like it. It's also taking into account your benefits, your taxes, and things like that. Not technical tax advice, but just general advice for what someone should do in retirement to stay below those tax brackets, right? Now, those are the 7 biggest changes that are in effect now in 2023, when it comes to Social Security benefits. Now, let me know in the comments if those affect you, and if they do, how they affect you. But really quickly, let's talk about 7 additional changes that have been proposed in Congress, whether it's Bernie Sanders, President Biden, Elizabeth Warren. Generally, it's Democrats proposing these things. There are a couple from Republicans, but usually those aren't good. Usually those lower benefits in one way or another. But specifically, these 7 changes that are being proposed that are not in effect yet, most of these have massive support from the general American public, right? So let's take a look at these. The fact that the majority of the American people supports these, it makes you think, well, hopefully they start to gain some more traction in Congress, right? Now, the first one here is raising the Social Security tax cap, right? And that's something like we talked about previously in today's show. That generally goes up almost every single year, slightly, right? But the problem is it doesn't go up enough. And basically, what most Democrats want to do is, for the most part, they basically want to take away that cap. They call it scrap the cap, or they want to have some kind of a donut hole where it doesn't go up if you make under 400,000, but everyone above $400,000 per year, then you're paying unlimited tax into the payroll tax. It gets a little more complicated. But one way or another, they basically, for the most part, want to get rid of that cap, right? And that would fund more money into the Social Security Trust Fund, which would make sure it remains solvent, also kind of open up the door to increasing benefits for those who are lower income. And funny enough, although most Republicans don't want to do this, 81% of the American people polled support this idea, right? 81%. And it's estimated that what this would do is, let's see, I believe if they did that, it would fund Social Security for like another 80 to 90 years, give or take, something like that. And when you look at Democrats versus Republicans, 88% of Democrats support this idea, basically 9 out of 10 Democrats. And 80% of Republican voters support it as well. So the massive majority of Americans, whether you're Democrat or Republican, support basically getting rid of the cap to make sure that the rich are paying more into Social Security benefits. So that's something that, Bernie Sanders has been pushing for, President Biden has been pushing for. It would go a long way to bolster Social Security benefits, potentially increase them, and make sure it remains solvent. And fascinating to see that 80% of the American public support this, whether Democrat or Republican, right? Now, the second proposal that has a lot of support from Americans is reducing benefits for high earners. Now, this is a controversial one here, folks. Now, on the one hand, again, if you're a high earner, or if you were a high earner your entire life, you know, technically, you feel like you deserve a higher benefit, and I wouldn't argue with you. On the other hand, there's folks who would argue, well, the minimum Social Security benefit is too low, right? If someone's on Social Security benefits and making $1,000 a month, they would argue, well, you know what? Why don't we take a little bit from the higher earners and give it to the lower earners, right? And this is where Social Security benefits becomes kind of a mixture of, first of all, you paid into it, so you deserve that benefit, right? But then there is kind of this social aspect where it's like, you know what? If you made $500,000 a year your entire life, you've got $10 million in the 401k, you've got, a bunch of properties making you passive income. You don't really even need the benefit. Maybe we can reduce the benefit a little bit for higher earners to increase that minimum benefit, right? To make sure nobody is living in poverty. This is something Bernie Sanders talks about as well. Now, it's controversial either way, but 81% of Americans support this idea. 86% of people who identify as Democrat support reducing benefits for high earners, so you can then give more benefits to lower earners and make sure Social Security remains solvent for much, much longer. And even Republicans, 78% of people who consider themselves Republicans support this idea as well. So massive support there when it comes to the idea of reducing benefits for higher earners to then give a little bit more to lower earners, right? And it's been estimated that just reducing slightly, the top 20% of earners reducing their benefit slightly would actually reduce the shortfall for the Social Security Trust Fund by 11%, right? So it wouldn't solve the problem, the solvency problem the Social Security Trust Fund has, but it would basically reduce that problem by 11%. But it would go, you fix that, you fix a couple things. Before you know it, you fix the problem. Now, the third change, and again, right now we're covering changes that have not been approved yet, but have a lot of support from the American people. And previously in today's show, we talked about changes that are already effective now, 7 changes that take place in 2023. We talked about that earlier in the show, and we'll recap them at the end as well. Right now, we're talking about 7 additional changes that are being proposed that have a ton of support from the American people. Now, the third change that has a ton of support is gradually raising the retirement age, which this one's controversial as well. And quite honestly, personally, I don't really agree with. For the most part, I get it. You have to do something. But at a certain point, sorry guys, at a certain point, it gets a little bit ridiculous, right? I think right now, full retirement age is about 67. I mean, at what point do you not even get to enjoy your benefit, right? Eventually, if they raise it to 75, 80 years old, I mean, for God's sakes, it becomes a scam, right? Where you pay into it, you never even get to use it. And eventually, what happens is they keep raising the full retirement age, and then they still let you retire at 62. But the more they raise the full retirement age, the more that gap gets bigger from full retirement age to when you actually retire, and the bigger that penalty gets for taking benefits early, right? So they raise the full retirement age. They're essentially cutting your benefit indirectly, if that makes sense, right? Now, despite that, 75% of the American public are in support of that. I'm surprised by this. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And it's basically equal for people who identify as Democrat or Republican. 76% of Democrats support this, and 75% of Republicans support this as well. Now, it's estimated that if they did this, basically they would reduce that shortfall for the Social Security Trust Fund by about 14%. So again, you save 14% here, you save 11% by cutting benefits for the wealthy, you save another 30% by increasing taxes on the rich. Before you know it, you fix the problem entirely, right? Now, the fourth proposal, which has a lot of support from the American people, and personally I think is a good idea, is increasing the payroll tax, right? Increasing the amount of tax that people pay into the Social Security system. Now, overall, 73% of American voters support this idea, and this is where you start to get a wider gap, a wider divide between people who identify as Democrat or Republican. Now, 78% of Democratic voters support increasing the payroll tax somewhat. Now, we don't know what the increase would be, but the general idea of increasing the payroll tax somewhat, 78% of Democratic voters say they support that. Now, Republican voters, on the other hand, only 70% of Republican voters say they support increasing the payroll tax. Now, that's still 70%. That's still the far majority. In this day and age, it's difficult to get 70% of the public to agree on anything, right? Especially how polarized we are. Now, it's estimated that if they increased the payroll tax even just slightly and this is such a slight increase, from 6.2%, and actually it's 12.4, you pay half, your employer pays half, but if they increase that to from 6.2%, which the employee pays, to 6.5%, it would eliminate 16% of the trust fund's shortfall. And again, it would also open up the door to potentially increasing benefits for those who are lower income as well. Now, from 6.2 to 6.5%, that is a tiny, tiny increase. I'm okay with that. I think anybody should be okay with that, right? And it shows you that 73% of the American people are okay with that as well. So hopefully they can come up with some reasonable increase for the payroll tax as well. Now, the fifth change that is being proposed that has a good amount of support from the American people as well is raising the minimum benefit. And this is one that I strongly agree with. I feel very strongly about this. And I'm honestly disappointed it doesn't have more support. It has a decent amount of support, but it should have more. And again, if you're just joining today's show, we're talking about 7 changes that are being proposed that have a ton of support from the American people. So has momentum. Earlier in the show, we talked about 7 changes that already went into effect for 2023. We're going to recap those later in today's show, but if you want to see those 7 changes, just rewind back to the beginning of the show. Otherwise, just stick around. We're going to recap those at the end of today's show as well. Now, as far as raising the minimum benefit, folks were asked, do you support raising the minimum benefit to 125% of the federal poverty level. I mean, why isn't it already 125% of the federal poverty level? Why wasn't that put in place in the first place? Well, essentially, what happens is 64% of the American people support raising the minimum benefit to 125% of the federal poverty level to make sure no one on benefits is forced to live in poverty. Now, as far as Democrats versus Republicans, those who identify as Democrat, 71% of them support the idea, and those who identify as Republican, 59% of them support the idea as well. So far, this is the biggest gap here, right? First of all, we see a big gap between Republicans and Democrats who want to increase the payroll tax. It's an 8% gap. Then we see an even bigger gap, looks like a 12% gap between Republicans and Democratic voters saying that they're willing to raise the minimum retirement benefit to 125% of the federal poverty level. Now, again, this is a massive difference here, but 59%, that's still pretty good, right? Given everything happening with how polarizing politics is, the far majority of people do still support increasing the minimum, the minimum benefit to 125% of the federal poverty level. Let's do this. Let's raise the minimum benefit for those who are lower income. Let me know in the comments if you agree. I think the average person would get an extra couple $100s per month, $200 to $400 per month if they actually did this. And it's reported that this would actually it would increase the shortfall, right? You're spending a little more money on its own. It would increase the shortfall by 7%. Not that bad, right? Especially if you're increasing taxes on the wealthy. Now, the sixth change being proposed that has not as much support, but still a decent amount of support is changing the COLA calculation, right? Now, if you guys follow my channel, you know that we've talked about COLA basically every couple weeks. And the COLA formula doesn't really reflect seniors' expenses as well as it could. And they essentially want to change that formula to what they call CPIE that takes into account expenses that affect seniors more, things like prescription copays and medical expenses and things like that. And by doing so, it's estimated that your benefit would go up significantly, maybe $100 per month, something like that. So much so that unfortunately it would increase the shortfall of the trust fund by 12%. But again, if you're zooming out and you're fixing the problem, you can make up that 12% somewhere else using the changes we've talked about in today's show as well. Now, unfortunately, only 55% of voters say they support this idea. 59% of Democrats and 55% of Republicans. Take that for what you will. This change is a little bit controversial as well because depending on what time frame you take, there has been some time frames where the current formula actually increases benefits more, but generally speaking, changing the formula would help seniors compared to how it is now. Now, the seventh benefit being proposed that has a decent amount of support here from the American people is increasing benefits for beneficiaries over 80 years old. And again, this is being proposed. In a few minutes, we're going to recap the changes that are currently in effect, right? If you're just joining today's show. Now, the idea here is for those who are 80 years old or older, they're basically in the twilight of their retirements for the most part. Maybe they have another 10 years left, as morbid as that sounds, but they have a lot more expenses, right? At this point, you can't really expect someone who is 80 years old to have a side hustle, right? I don't expect really to have many 80-year-olds in the gig economy pro, right? The program where I show you how to make an additional $500 to $1,000 per month just by working a handful of hours and being your own boss. Again, link is in the description of this video. You don't expect to see many 80-year-olds doing that, right? And, with your earning power going down even more, you're probably going to have more medical expenses. Democrats have proposed increasing the benefit by about 5% for everyone 80 years and older to help them account for this, to help them account for the additional expenses, to help them account for the fact that if they have a 401k, there's a good chance they've probably drained it or are draining it pretty severely at this point. And that 5%, it's really a humane thing to do, right? To help people. And I strongly agree with this. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And although you still have the majority of Americans supporting this, 53%, it's kind of sad to see that it's not higher, right? And let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. But in any case, these are the 7 changes that are being proposed that have a lot of support from the American people. Hopefully they get these done. Obviously, we have Bernie Sanders, who proposed the Social Security Expansion Act, which would include a lot of these changes, especially increasing that minimum benefit and increasing taxes on the rich? Let me know your thoughts on those in the comments. Again, I will keep you posted as things develop. We have a ton of proposals. We've also had, Social Security on the forefront when it came to the midterm elections. Now we have Democrats coming out again saying that Republicans could potentially want to try and cut benefits when it comes to this debt ceiling issue they have to solve in the next 4 or 5 months. I'll keep you posted as these things develop as well. But if you guys are just joining today's show, for those of you who just joined, I'm going to quickly recap the 7 changes that are in place now, effective now for Social Security benefits. I'm going to quickly recap exactly what they are and how they could potentially affect you. Now, the first change is the most obvious one, and it's the 8.7% COLA increase for 2023. Now, for those of you who already received your payments, after January 11th, you received your first increase payment. And the rest of you will get those on either January 18th or January 25th. Now, quickly, what I want to touch on before we get on to the rest of the 6 changes, the 7 total changes effective now for Social Security benefits, is the fact that some people are actually worried that COLA could be zero in 2024. For those of you already looking forward, we've had 4 years in the last 14 years that had a 0% COLA. And these were 2009, 2010, 2015, and actually 2016 it was zero point 0.3, which I'm counting as zero, right? And we have a lot of people, a lot of big articles and media outlets, even some big YouTube channels saying, watch out, we could have a 0% COLA in 2024 as well. And the reason they think this is because inflation is currently trending down like this. And if it keeps trending down so much so that in the third quarter of 2023, if it's zero, if inflation is zero or negative, every month in that third quarter of 2023, your COLA will be 0%, right? Now, these times are unprecedented. We're still coming out of, this economic experiment with the pandemic and all those things. So it could potentially happen. But when you look at history, generally, when we get a massive spike in COLAs, right? When you get a large COLA, like if you see here, 14%, it usually takes a couple of years to slowly trickle back down to normal, right? So in the 80s, we had a COLA of 14%, then 11%, then 7%, and it eventually went back down to the normal 2 or 3%. Now, that's probably what'll happen here, right? We had a COLA of 8.7%. So unfortunately, it's going to go down, a likelihood of what could happen is in 2024, we could have a COLA of maybe, 4 or 5%. It is possible it could go down to 0%, but it's unlikely. Now, all of this depends on how inflation goes. Again, these are things I keep you updated on my channel as well, because what inflation is doing and what the Federal Reserve is doing impacts your Social Security benefits because it impacts your COLA as well. So again, subscribe if you want to stay updated on these things. But the first biggest change was COLA, right? This COLA increase of 8.7%. The second biggest change for 2023, if you're just joining today's show, is that the amount of people paying into the payroll tax for Social Security is going up as well, right? Now, in 2022, if you made over $147,000 per year, you stopped paying into the payroll tax. So when you think about someone like Elon Musk, who made like $40 billion, after he made $147,000, he stopped paying into the tax. I mean, that's insane. And that's something Democrats are trying to fix. But the big change now is that has gone up from $147,000 per year to $160,200. So the good news there is that more people will be paying more into the Social Security Trust Fund, right? And that has gone up here in 2023, and that is the second biggest change that's happened. Now, the third biggest change out of the 7 is the maximum benefit has gone up as well, right? So for those of you who are high income, your entire working careers, you had at least 35 years of making a ton of money, and you qualify for the maximum, it's gone up from $3,345 per month to $3,627 per month. That is a massive, massive benefit. Now, it's worth noting that only 2% of beneficiaries qualify for this. And again, the average benefit is really only $1,827 per month. And if you're interested in learning how to add an additional $500 to $1,000 per month from that, just from being your own boss and working a handful of hours per week, join our group, the Gig Economy Pro. Link is in the description of this video here. And right now, it hasn't launched. It launches in about 4 to 6 weeks. But if you join now and you buy it now, you're going to get a really good sale. It's about half off. And then when it launches, you'll have full access to that. Now, the third change here was this increase in this monthly maximum benefit. The fourth change is the income threshold that you can make, basically the amount of money you can make every single year outside of your benefits without getting penalized from your social security benefits, right? And this applies to people who are under full retirement age and have an additional source of income. So for example, if you're 63 years old, you're not at full retirement age yet, and you have an additional, side income, let's say you're in the Gig Economy Pro, you make an extra $1,000 a month, there are thresholds that you have to stay under to make sure you don't get penalized, right? Most of you are familiar with this. And essentially in 2022, if you made over $19,560 per year, every $2 above that you made reduced your social security benefit by $1. Now that's being increased from $19,560 to $21,240. And again, these are things we cover in the Gig Economy Pro program as well. We discuss what these income limits always are to make sure you're not getting your benefits penalized and to make sure you're not paying too much in taxes. But that is the fourth biggest change, that income threshold for people under full retirement age to make sure their benefits are not being penalized. Now, the fifth biggest change is similar to the last one when it comes to income limits, but specifically pertains to people on SSDI, Social Security Disability Income. And that was increased from $1,350 per month to $1,470 per month. And if you're blind, it's been increased from $2,460 per month, from $2,260 per month to $2,460 per month, right? So increases in the monthly income limit for SSDI as well. And again, that last number was if you're blind. If you're not blind, it's up to $1,440 per month. Now, the sixth biggest change here, and this is something that happens every year as well, is how you earn your credits. And this affects people who are not yet on Social Security benefits. If you're working and trying to earn your credits, you need 40 lifetime credits to qualify for Social Security benefits. And essentially, the change this year, which happens every year, basically every year, is the amount of money you have to make to earn each credit tends to go up. This year is no exception. Now, in 2022, to earn one credit, you had to make $1,510 and you could earn 4 credits per year. Now, that has increased. So now to earn each credit, you have to make $1,640. And again, you can earn up to 4 credits per year. So basically, it's become a little bit more difficult to earn those credits, but that's kind of a normal situation. And again, that really only affects people who are not yet in retirement. Now, the seventh and final change, and this one's a little quirky. It's not technically a change, but it is something that could change and affect you personally, is taxes. Now, depending on how much money you make outside of Social Security benefits, you will be taxed on your Social Security benefit. Now, this could either be 0% of your benefit being taxed at the federal level. Some states tax your benefit no matter what. Some states don't tax it at all. But at the federal level, if you make a certain amount of money, 50% of your benefit will be taxed, and then 85% of your benefit will be taxed. And essentially, the point here is that those thresholds don't change. So the threshold, for example, stays here, and then every year, COLA brings benefits higher, right? So eventually, every year, there's a bunch of people that end up above that threshold just because of the COLA and obviously their other sources of income, right? So for a small percentage of you watching today's show, some of you will be bumped up above that threshold, and that's a massive problem, right? Because if all of a sudden you make $100 too much, you're in that higher threshold, and now you're paying taxes on 50% of your Social Security benefit, right? And again, these concepts are things we talk about in the Gig Economy Pro as well, link in the description of this video. And we show you how to make additional money with just a handful of hours per week, but make sure you're staying under those thresholds, right? And again, not specific tax advice. I'm not an accountant, but just a general idea of how to make good money while still staying under those thresholds so you don't pay more taxes on Social Security benefits, right? So folks, Those are the 7 changes in effect now for Social Security benefits. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And again, if you guys like this content, subscribe, and I will keep you posted as things develop. We're constantly talking about COLA increases, things that affect that, like what inflation is, which could affect what your COLA might be. Proposals being done in Congress, like, for example, Bernie Sanders, the Social Security Expansion Act, which would provide an additional $200 per month for 12 months for everyone on benefits. So, guys, please subscribe. And again, if you haven't done so already, get your free stocks. It's completely free. Click the link in the description. You have to fully open your account, do the whole process. It's a legitimate company. They're licensed and registered with the US government. You will get some free stocks, and you could get up to 12 valued up to $3,000 each. And you could sell them right away if you want. Sell the stocks, but you have to deposit at least $1. I'll get a free stock as well. So, guys, with that said, thank you so much for watching. Before I end today's show, I'm quickly going to go through the comments here in the live chat. So if you'd like to stick around, thank you. And if not, I'll see you on the next show. But guys, let's take a look at the comments here. Marty Holub said he got his on January 3rd. Anita Whooper said, yes, I got mine, but then it cut the food stamps, $23 a month. Yes, Anita, that's a big problem here. Anita basically saying that her benefit got increased, but then she has these food stamp benefits that then got cut. Unfortunately, that's a big problem they have here, and that's something that Bernie Sanders is trying to address as well. Wanda said, what about retirement? Hope this video kind of answered your question, Wanda. Sherry said that she's on SSDI and she only gets $980 a month. Yes, that is very low, and this, again, is why people like Bernie Sanders want to increase this minimum benefit. Carlos said, hey, Andrew, what I received from Social Security. Hey, Carlos, hope you're having a good day. USA said he gets $2,470 a month on SSDI. I guess one of the lucky ones. USA, that overall is a good benefit. That's great. Now, if you obviously you're disabled, USA, but if you have some ability to do some sort of side hustle, consider joining our Gig Economy Pro. Again, it's going to launch in about 4 to 6 weeks, and it's going to have a Facebook group as well where I walk you through these things. But imagine adding an additional, USA on top of the 2,400. Imagine adding another 1,000 just by working a handful of hours per week, right? Again, it's on sale. It's about half off right now for those of you who join before it launches, and then you'll have full access once it launches in about 4 to 6 weeks. Mary says her benefit is $2,610 per month. Wow, that is a great benefit, Marty. Marty said, what are the qualifications? Sorry, that kind of cut off there. Victor said they should fix Social Security and send out checks $200 a month like Joe Biden promised. Yes, that's actually something that Bernie Sanders proposed again with the Social Security Expansion Act. So we're keeping our eye on that. Hopefully he'll keep pushing for that this year as well. All right, guys, with that said, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed today's show. Again, if you like these updates, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next show.